Welcome to the Sheroes of Beijing Stories, the podcast series, brought to you by UN Women Nigeria and Women in Successful Careers, WISCAR. In this series, we would be sharing and celebrating stories of women's activism in Nigeria. The women in this podcast were present in the Fourth World Conference on Women, popularly tagged Beijing 1995. And their extensive and impactful experience and commitment to the empowerment of women is why we continue to celebrate them. At WISCAR, we believe in the power of a shared story in leading the next generation to aspire, grow, and contribute to nation building. We hope you will be inspired as you listen. Hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Sheroes of Beijing, the podcast series. My name is Fabia Ogunmekan. I'm the Executive Director of WISCAR, Women in Successful Careers. And today I'm going to be talking with Dame Marie Fatayi Williams. And we will be having a conversation around all things women, women's rights, women's activism, and of course our book, The Sheroes of Beijing Stories. So let me introduce my guest before we begin the interviews. Dame Marie Fatayi Williams is a women in development activist. She's a past board member, International Council of Women. She's a past president, International Women's Society, and past chairman of various standing committees of the National Council of Women's Societies. She's an author and a mother. She's also the chair of the Anthony Fatayi Williams Foundation for Peace and Youth Development. She has had an extensive and impressive career spanning over 30 years in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. She is also a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, a papal medalist, and currently a council member of Augustine University, Epe, Lagos State. She is a director of the New Nigeria Foundation and a council member of the Nigeria Conservation Foundation, NCF. So welcome, MFW. I'm so excited to have you with me here in the studio. So let's get into it. Let's get into our conversation. And you started off in the game, the women's rights movement game, quite early on in your career. And incidentally, you had a full corporate career going while doing a lot of this great work, working with the National Women's Council, working with International Women's Society. And yeah, it would be interesting to know, what got you involved. How did you get involved, and what that journey was like?
That's too many questions packed in one, but we'll try to tease them out and see what we bring to the table. Yes, thank you, Fabia, for having me here this day for this conversation on women's issues. Yes, I started out with women's issues very young, very, very early on in my life, because one, I was coming from a family where I had a mother who was a women developer in her own right, because we grew up knowing what to do, how to do things as both boys and girls in a home. We're not segregated to say, a boy can cook, only a girl can cook. My mother taught us well-rounded family to do that. And because of our Catholic leaning, we also learned to know how to give. And my father, may his soul rest in peace, and my mother as well, may they rest in peace, used to tell us then that if you had a penny and you couldn't share it, so that it touches the next person, and you're waiting to have a pound, you may not even have that pound. So you must learn to share that penny, that you yourself and your neighbors can have something. So that, I think, was the DNA with which I grew up in, and we knew how to give, how to look to the next person. Even if you didn't have, you knew how to be responsible for the other. It was not an other that was a negative other, but an other that was a person like yourself and a friend. So having come through all that, and then I got married, and then I found myself in a home where my late mother-in-law, Mrs. Irene Fatayi Williams, may her soul rest in peace, was a wonderful women activist as well. She actually more or less put me in the bath with International Women's Society. So I was just following through with her. And yes, her leadership and her giving and her entertaining of the women in the garden at times. Because IWS, for example, at that point, you would say, people would say, maybe it's a tea drinking society and stuff, but not really. Because Mom, like we call her, used to actually get the disabled children from the Girl Guide Center to come home at Christmas. And there we would make food for them, make Christmas hearts, give them a fun time in the garden, and make them actually enjoy being who they were, human beings, loved by other people. And that was her own way of contributing to International Women's Society and giving back. So I followed in that, and she insisted that I should try and join. She didn't actually really insist. It was like, I loved it. It was like finding myself. And I decided I would join up. And that's how I joined up. And instead of going with her to Ladies Dining Club and all these other things, I decided to stay more with IWS than with other whatever. And of course, through that, we met other women and other people. And next thing, people like Mrs. Adefarasi, Mrs. Zako, and all these were past presidents of National Council of Women's Societies.
Right.
And so you find that from one thing leading to the other, find ourselves in that. And I think also because the women recognized that I was young, I was maybe able to give a lot of service, and I was enterprising enough. And they decided to rope me into many things because they trusted that if you give it to Mary, Mary will do it. She'll do it well and she won't complain. So I was like always being called to take charge of this, or to do that, or to be secretary of this, to write a report. And
the reward for hard work is more work.
More work, exactly. So that's how I find myself going into all of this. So, but at the same time I was working. So for me, what it meant was that I looked at all of this. The people that I was working with at the time were not my age mates by any square of imagination. They were much older than me, much older women than myself. And I said to myself, I would rather do what I'm doing now and give back when it hurts than wait when I'm very old and say that's when I'm doing something because I have nothing else to do. I'm not saying those women were doing it because they had nothing else to do. No, they're giving their bit. But being one of the few young ones there, I saw it as that I have a talent. Oh, I'll give it off now. I may not have the treasure. I may not have the time. But if I struggle and I give a bit of my time, it means I've given something. If I give of my talent, which is not mine, was given to me by God, then I've also given something. But if I don't have treasure to give, at least 2 over 3,
it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. And that's how I found myself in the women's societies, trying to give of what I had to give, which was a bit of my time, which was really tough because I had to actually squeeze time out to do what I did. And of course, a lot of my talent. And apparently it was well appreciated by the grandees of those days who were, like you say, more reward for hard work is more work.
Yes. Interesting. And can I just ask, if we speak about that talent, what was that talent that you ended up being called upon to give? So in what ways did you contribute to those societies, and sort of what became your niche, if I can ask?
Yeah, you could say that you could see things maybe done in a particular way that could be done differently, that would add more value to what you wanted to do. You could see that maybe instead of just waiting around and just trying to say, okay, we do this, we do that, we do the routine things, you could think up new things. Like during the time of the end of the decade of United Nations Decade for Peace, we came up in National Council of Women's Society, the International Relations Committee, where I was secretary to one Lady Justice, who was the chairperson. We saw that it was coming to an end, and that was the height of apartheid movement and, the Mandela incarceration and stuff. And we're a women's group. So I came up with this idea. Why don't we honor, Mrs. Winnie Mandela?
Wow.
As Africa's woman of peace and courage. And it was like, how is that going to, who will do so much work? I said, I'll do it. I'll do what needs to be done. But agree first that we can do this to wrap up the year. And we can see whether she can come or can't come. So at the end of the day, yes, I had to do most of the legwork. My chairperson was very good and said, yeah, well, I support the idea. Mr. Adefarasi was very acceptable, the president of NCWS. I did agree. And so we went to the South African High Commission, and the man there at the time was very good. He was really one of those really working towards this end to apartheid. And we were also working closely with NAPTIP at the time.
Okay.
So we put it all together as a package. And it was like a little mustard seed. At the end of the day, it became a great acorn because Mrs. Mandela accepted our invitation. We had a big seminar in the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs.
Okay.
We had diplomats there. We had everybody there. It was a packed auditorium. We had a good lecture. And at the end of the day, who came? Unfortunately, Mrs. Mandela herself couldn't come. Then she sent her daughter, Princess Zenani Dlamini, and she came with her husband, the Prince Dlamini.
Oh, wow.
And believe you me, at the end of the day, it was taken off our hands because we now had a guest of state.
Right,
And she was representing her mother, and Mrs. Mandela, then was topic of everybody, So when Zenani came, our late First Lady, the then First Lady, late Mrs. Babangida, she became her guest at the end of the day. And so she hosted her at State House Marina, gave her
so
a
it became
cocktail.
an even bigger thing.
It became a bigger thing, and then she did go home with a lot of things. And of course, we gave her the medal, the pin, the NCWS pin for her mother to pin on her when she gets there as Woman of Courage and Peace, as given by the National Council of Women.
Wow.
Believe you me, when Mandela was released from prison and he came to Nigeria with his wife, and the reception was held at State House Marina again, we were presented to Mrs. Mandela and Mr. Mandela. And what did the head of state then call me? Introduce me to Mandela as, one of our young female activists.
Wow.
And Mrs. Mandela actually asked for her women. She called us her women, the women of the National Council of Women. Where are they? I need to see them. And so we all had to troop to Abuja to be with her. And then
because she remembered the honor.
She remembered the honor. And so we now pinned her again formally. Mrs. Adefarasin pinned the badge formally on her and installed her as a member of the National Council. And not only that, as recognized as the Africa's Woman of Peace and Courage for that year. So that was some of the kinds of ideas that you could bring, and not be afraid to bring it if you know that you're not afraid to work. And then you could change things.
That's amazing. And I think the lesson there really is that one is never too young, really, to be a part of really big and amazing projects. And I think that what one then needs is just that enabling environment, people who believe in you, mentors now, as we know them, so to speak, to really just create that platform and allow our young ones to come through and shine. That's a really fantastic story. I think we'll take a break here and just recap on some of the Beijing Platform for Action goals, and we'll come back shortly. We're here speaking with MFW, Dame Marie Fatayi Williams.
The 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action flagged 12 key areas where urgent action was needed to ensure greater equality and opportunities for women and men, girls and boys. It also laid out concrete ways for countries to bring about change. UN Women works with governments and partners to ensure such change is real for women and girls around the world. Critical area of concern number 10, women and the media. The media plays a significant role in perpetuating and challenging social norms that condone discrimination or violence against women. It can objectify women, but also showcase strong women leaders and protagonists who can become role models for their audience. UN Women collaborates closely with the media as a key ally in advancing women's rights. Apart from working with the media to facilitate in-depth coverage on women's rights, we undertake research on the portrayal of women in news media as well as the entertainment industry. Additionally, the Media Compact on Beijing Plus 25 works to increase and sharpen the profile of women in the news. We also conduct special workshops and trainings with journalists globally to encourage gender-sensitive reporting.
And that was one of the 12 critical areas of concern of the Beijing Declaration. So back to our conversation with Dame Marie Fatayi Williams. So, ma'am, in the book, The Sheroes of Beijing Stories, you said that gender rights journey is not where it ought to be. So given the magnitude of, the work that still needs to be done, what would you advise the next and current generation of gender advocates to do to ensure that the next 25 years from now, the story that we speak of will be different? And this is referencing, of course, the amount of work that has already been done by those who have gone before.
Thank you, Fabia. That's a loaded question. Yes, we've got to, first of all, look back at what we've done, look at where we are, and then focus on the future. But for the work that past women have done, we wouldn't be even where we are. True. Things won't be where they are today. So we can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. And I know you recognize that fact, that's why there's that book, The Sheroes, that things have been done in the past. And women are more in the limelight now. Women go to school more. Girl-child education is there. Gender equality is not yet there. It's not yet uhuru. And women in key positions, well, tokenism is still there. And but the elephant in the room is women in development, because we have population of over 60% or about 60% of our country's population are women. And we can't say because we have one or two women at the top and so we have done it. We should want to be able to know how to carry everybody along. So to start with, I would say that, yes, we've tried, we've come this far. We've tried to domesticate some of these women's rights issues. We've tried to bring new laws like the Violence Against Women law. But then if you look at that law even itself, 25 years on, where are we? We got this thing, violence against women, and then we are asking states to domesticate it and not to send their girl child to school. Not to get them married off early
yes.
Instead to send them to school. But where are we today? Even the states that are the most guilty of child marriages that leads to VVF, that's vagina, vesicle, fistula problems, are the ones that have not domesticated this law. They're the ones that are still guilty of child marriage. They're the ones that are still not sending children to school. So why would women be sitting pretty in those states and not doing something about it? So it's one thing to fight and get to a place where, okay, we've got these laws, we've got these issues. It's another thing to make sure it is physically working for the greater number of people and not for just a few. Another issue with women, like the late Jadesola Akonde would say, PhD, pull her down syndrome.
Yes, you refer to that in the book. I
refer to that in the book because it is so true. Because issue of women is that people say, oh, they can't work together. Perhaps, in most cases, but some do work together. But when you have this issue of self-interest, division, and chronism, it becomes a big problem. Women can't seem to come together and say, we want to hold our own. It's like, oh, it's my association, your association, that association. No, we should come now and talk about ideologies, things that will be at the focal points. What are the issues troubling women? Okay, the children are not going to school. Get a massive thing going to say, our daughters must go to school. If you go to the village, you tell a village woman, your daughter, you want her to go to school or you want her to be a bread seller. She'll say, I want her to go to school. Oh yeah, come and join this movement that is saying we should do this. It's not a matter of which association, which constitution, which group. No, it's not any group. It is a matter of we, the women. This is what we want. Aba women did it for a cause. You stand behind a cause. You stand behind an ideology and you move forward. The suffragettes did it to get the vote for women. To be able to allow women to vote. That's how women got the right to vote and other development, other human rights. They didn't say it was, because of this council, because of that. It was eventually later that they now formed the names of their council, of this, of that. But it was a matter of that it cut across border, cut across faith, it cut across every known division. And it was a matter of that, yes, we agree on this point. The market women will agree with you. Farming women will agree with you. Different groups of women will agree that this is an ideology, this is a cause that needs fighting for, or dropping our hoes in the farms and coming to the road. Downing tools, that's the word, and then doing something. So we haven't got to that stage. Unfortunately, what was done post-Beijing and after Beijing was a matter of tokenism. We are fighting for women's, you want women to be in government, you want women in positions of power, you want women in this. But there are so few and far between. If you get 30 women today to be empowered, and those 30 women don't lift up much more, another 30 men, what have you gained? When you look at the population of women that we're talking. So we should now go into the issue of not only this self-interest and, propagating the self, but into the issue of development, into the issue of ideological development of women and moving the women from the bottom to the top and giving them some form of empowerment. Some form of empowerment that will, look like the young people that are now talking and coming together under the violence against women. You see that it is different. It's not a matter of, I can see some bright future because the way these young people are coming together now, they are breaking down the barriers of my group, your group. They are coming together under issues, under things that are actually affecting women development. And the informal sector of the women in the informal sector has not been looked into. Women are suffering. Women are poor. What of poverty? Who's breaking that cycle? In this country, we've had a woman petroleum minister. If in the past they had said that we'll have a woman petroleum minister, we would say no. But what would we say then? We would have said, if we are given that position, women don't happy because they are broken out of poverty realm. But did that happen? Did we break out of poverty realm? Because you could, if really one empowered woman says that, my constituency is not me or my political party. My constituency is all women. My goodness, she would have such a followership that she herself would marvel and say, is it what happened? Before she knows what, they would vote her as president of Nigeria because her followership would be so great if she says, my constituency is women. Now I'm a minister of petroleum, or I'm a minister of finance, or I'm a minister of whatever, and I want to deal with the women. Forget about the women ministry. I'm talking of core positions. When a woman is in that real core position where you can empower other women, break the cycle and say, I want to remove women out of poverty, and this is where we are going. Who are those with me? Get your army. The women will follow you, and you will never come down. Because that ladder that put you up, you didn't cut it, and so they will help you to prop it up, and they will support you through thick and thin, because the loyalty of women is completely
100%.
100%.
If you do them right.
If you do them right.
That's fantastic, Ma. Wow, that was so passionately said. And we are hopeful, and I'm excited that you expressed some hope, because in some ways, some will say that this generation are exactly, that which you speak about, which is some of us that can be quite self-centered and sort of very much about, the branding and sort of seeking, what is good for me. We're definitely a generation of sort of our brand, pushing ourselves forward. But then even in that, I think definitely there is also still that collective awareness, now more of doing things collaboratively. And I think that if we hold on to that, of doing things collaboratively, definitely we have, a future ahead. And also, I think I heard you say lifting the grassroots women up. We cannot do it alone. It cannot just be about the top 30%. No. It has to really be about carrying everybody up along. Yeah, that's really fantastic. And I hope that we will listen and we will take these words of wisdom.
But it was done by the Aba women. They did something. Indeed. They did it, and they moved mountains.
I think across history, we definitely have those stories. We have those stories, and even now, and
you have them.
Not wanting to belabor the point of the NSAS movement, but we saw it rising.
Yes.
And I think, like I said, there's definitely that whole coming
together. Do you
together.
think if women decided to come up tomorrow because of a cause, or that they are killing their daughters, or that their children are going to school up north or wherever, and that terrorists are taking over schools and people are being forced back to go into their huts,
and we have the situations, they come out.
Yes, and then,
bring back our girls,
all those
movements. Yeah.
Fine. Do you think that if the women came out en masse, anybody would be able to withstand and say no? Look at what is happening in Myanmar, for example. People are coming out, and they're coming out. They're killing them, but they are refusing to go back inside. Until we get to a stage where you can say, well, I'm ready to die for a cause, then it's no more. It's not a movement. It's nothing. But if it's a matter of, just my comfort or whatever, it's never going to happen. When the women decide today in Nigeria to say, I'm rising up, and we are rising up for a cause, do or die, we are speaking, people will give way and they will listen. Because it happened before, it can happen in any part of the world. Myanmar is an example. You can see it. But then you cannot do anything without taking that risk to say, well, I may return home and I may not return home.
Wow. I don't have anything else to add to that. Thank you very much, Ma. So before we wrap up this conversation, I just want to take us back, take the tempo down a notch, and take you down memory lane. This podcast is called The Beijing Stories, the podcast series, and it would be great to just hear, have you reminisce on what it was like to go to Beijing all those years ago, 25 plus years now, what was the energy then like? I know that sort of galvanized a lot of people, a lot of women who went there from reading the book, have said that sort of really spurred their activism just because of, how unique and wonderful it was of a coming together, and those who spoke and all of that. What are your memories of Beijing? And if you would then do things differently, 25 years on, what would that be? So if I just summarize the question, I'm saying, tell us a little bit about your memories of Beijing. What did that mean to you? And what did that then sort of lead you? Did it change anything? Did it inspire you to do things differently coming back? And yeah, I think we'll close it there.
Beijing. That was a gathering of women.
Wow.
Really. It was like, I was there on two levels. I was there with the National Council of Women of Nigeria and under the leadership of Mrs. Adefarasi at the time. And I was there also on the level of International Council of Women, but as a young woman in charge of Africa region that was to host something at Huairu, the NGO platform.
Right.
So we took, even when we were there, our first lady at the time and our deputy came to what we did at the Huairu Center. So it was one of the things I can never forget about Beijing is when Hillary Clinton took the podium and we were all in that hall and they declared that women's rights are human rights. And it was like, wow, it was an explosion. It was this lovely young woman that had come with her hair down and everything, and she spoke, and when she just uttered that statement, it was like, well, this is a wrap-up. This is all
we need to hear. This is what we came for.
And this is what post-Beijing will be. Domestication of women's rights, making them human rights, because we are no more going to be hewers of wood and fetchers of water and stuff. We have come, we've arrived. And 25 years on, have we really arrived? Are women's rights, human rights? In many other countries, perhaps. In Nigeria, we still have a long way to go. It's as if, I don't want to say we are regressing or we have regressed, but there's a lot more to be desired. When you look at Beijing and the fact that we went there with a just declared Ministry of Women Affairs. We were coming from a National Commission of Women, which we were happy that we had fought for. But we were actually needing a women's ministry. And then, can you imagine going there with a women's ministry, coming back with Ambassador Sefiata as the woman minister for women's ministry and stuff. And then overnight you're having 30 women commissioners in all the states, and you're having, but then we are saying we must work with men. And so they insisted then that the DGs of each of the ministries must be a man, so that we can't say it's all women, because we are partners in progress. So that again is another fallout of the Beijing, that we thought the ministry was the way to go and that we are home and dry. Alas, are we home and dry? Ministry of Women Affairs, where whither? Falling flat, good to go, battered vehicle, knocks and bumps, or is it a Mercedes, or should it be an aeroplane, or should it be a jetliner? That was supposed to be the dream, that the jetliner to the stream to where we are going to get to was the women ministry, and we fought hard for women's ministry, and it came, and suddenly it was a women's ministry for me and myself and my cronies, and the women, the grassroots women. I don't think they know that the Ministry of Women Affairs exists. I'm sorry, but this is just me speaking.
Yes, of course.
And women all over Nigeria, I don't think, have felt the impact of the National Ministry of Women Affairs. Maybe in the various states. Some actually changed it to Bureau of Women and stuff. So at the end of the day, do you have square pegs and square holes? Do you have women of who actually are gender-sensitive women who knew what the cause was that are in charge? Or do you have people who are being schooled about what the cause is? What is G? Somebody, what's GE? What's gender equality? What's gender violence? What's this one? No, it is not a matter of saying we did this, we did that, and we are just documenting a few things. Action speaks louder than words. Let's see the footprints on the ground. Let's see the soldiers, the women. Women are there, foot soldiers, ready to develop, ready to do things. How many women farmers do we have? How many have we empowered? Entrepreneurship, MSMEs, SMEs. Women are getting loans and doing things. These women are the ones that do the back-end work. They're the informal workers. They need empowerment. Real empowerment. When you say empowerment, not because I want 30 people to be in the cabinet of Mr. President. That's good enough, yes. It's another thing to have. But when you talk of women empowerment and development, you go well beyond this thing that we are talking about now. We're breaking glass ceilings, yes. What about breaking farmyards? What about getting people food on their tables? What about getting women not to dance anymore at political gatherings and be the ones to make decisions? What about, why are they scared of having a women's party? Why are they scared of having a women's wing even? I don't even want a women's wing. I want a women's party, political party. The men will be scared because they know that the women will win the election hands down. Because we will go for the best of the best as our leaders, as the ones who will represent us, and we'll put them square pegs in square holes. And Nigeria will not be the same again, I can assure you. If we had a women's party in this country, all the men will be put on check. We're not going to do it alone. The men will be part of us, but it will be a women's party. Not a party where a woman can only be the social secretary, cannot be a chairman, cannot be a secretary, cannot be anything but social, the part that they cook, they do the welfare, social welfare. That's what they have been relegated to till now, and it's still going on. When will women chair a political party? If they don't want you to chair a political party, then from your own. There is a thing that says that technology, the oil industry, you don't wait for it to be given to you. You beg, borrow, or steal. If you don't do it, then you... Years ago, China was nowhere in the oil industry, but today they are frontliners. They are even kicking out those who are coming, who brought technology, oil technology into their country. Say, thank you, very well done. You can now go. We have taken back our acreages. We are doing it ourselves. Indonesia did it. When we were starting LNG years ago and we stopped and we didn't start, Indonesia took off. And now they are in train 12 or 13. We are still struggling to do train 7, which is good. We've tried. But that is how it is. Malaysia took palm oil from here, the palm kernel. Where are they today? Where are we? So this is the same thing with women's movements and women development. So long as we keep ourselves together and we are only potting with ourselves in the boardrooms or in the whatever, in the nice appointments they give us, and we forget that the people that are behind us are a drove of women, poor, poverty-stricken, and completely with nothing to show. So long would we have a problem, because there's what we call generational poverty, which has happened now. And once a woman is poor and the children are poor, so long will the poverty continue until we break that cycle. Then Nigeria as a country cannot even develop, cannot boast of development, because you are losing more than half of your population in the persons of women in development.
And there you have it, listeners. We have a charge. It's been all laid down. We've got to lift women up. We've got to have a critical convening, a critical mass convening from the grassroots to the boardroom if we're really to make a change.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Dame Marie Fatayi Williams, for being on this series, on this episode with us, unpacking the issue of women's rights and women's activism and sharing your journey, your story, and your perspective.
Thank you very much, Fabia. It took one like you to bring me out.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sheroes of Beijing podcast series. For more insights, follow us up across our social media handles. Follow UN Women on Twitter at UN Women Nigeria. Follow WISCAR on Instagram at WISCARNG and WISCAR Nigeria on Facebook and LinkedIn, or at Africa Business Radio.